tech and travel writer who had a unique opportunity to travel to Ireland to the Guinness Brewery. And you started telling me a couple of weeks ago about all the awesome things you saw. Just tell me about the trip in general, and you said you went to the archives and go ahead.
Yeah, we went to the archives that are part of Guinness. There's a special floor where Guinness is unique in that they have their own archivist on staff who, her whole job is to keep track of everything Guinness. So we got to see the original recipe for Guinness, some of the original brewing logs from the 1700s, some of the original bottles.
Okay. So there's a lot of artifacts and documents.
Yeah, every document that has anything to do with Guinness was in this room, and she could bring it out. She had gloves on, so you couldn't really touch any of it, but we could see some of it. I got to take some pictures of it, so that was all pretty cool. I live in San Francisco now, so I got to read some of the first brewery reps' thoughts on San Francisco.
Oh wow!
Which was kind of it was interesting to read from I feel like the late 1700s was when it was.
Oh.
But he said it was as near perfection as we could expect, which. Being from the South, I thought was a nice way of saying it was a horrible place, but it worked out.
The Europeans were like, "Oh, San Francisco, you're a big city, but
it's as good as we can expect."
Well, that's interesting. But I'm sure the tour itself and the visit was top notch. Everything was literally world class.
Yeah, the actual you don't get to go where they actually brew at Guinness when you do the tour. It's kind of a commercialized thing. So you have. They're at 3 floors where you go. One floor is just kind of the brewing process, what you would get from any brewery tour, except on an epic scale. So when they tell you about water, they have an actual waterfall in the brewery, the fake brewery, for you to see, and different steps of brewing. And then the second floor is all their advertising, which is really neat because Guinness has had some really amazing advertising over the past. Several decades. So you can see the original newspaper ad that they had put up. A lot of the Guinness's string things. They have giant toucans.
I'm sure they explain why the toucan became their mascot, and that's an interesting story for another show. One
thing I thought that was super interesting about that is they have the Guinness has the harp on their logo, and Ireland has the harp on their. It's in the official Ireland logo that's on their money, but Guinness had already trademarked the harp, so it has to be reversed on Ireland's stuff.
Oh, okay.
They couldn't do the harp the same way that Guinness had already done the harp. So
it's just a flip.
It's
the
just
same image.
It's the exact same image, just flipped. So it's a mirror image of which I thought was funny that they'd had to do.
Interesting. They should have sued Ireland. Obviously. No.
I think they were cool with it. I think they were it's just, please put our brewery logo on anything you want.
Yeah.
And then they have, at the very top of Guinness, they have a gravity bar, which is, it's a 360-degree view of Dublin. So you can go up there. If you do the tour, you get a free beer or a free soda. I don't know who gets the soda, but you get a coupon for a beer or a soda. And then you get to the top and you can see all of Dublin, and they have written on the windows what you're looking at, so you can have some sort of idea of you can see the Wicklow Mountains from there, which is where they source their water. You can see different cathedrals and different Dublin landmarks from up there.
Awesome.
Which is super cool, yeah. And then they also have a connoisseur bar, which I was lucky enough to do. They only let 50 people do that a day, I think, and you have to reserve it pretty far in advance. But there you get to try all the Guinness from around the world. So it was here's 9 different kinds of Guinness. Maybe 9 may have been higher or lower, but
right.
A bunch of different kinds of Guinness and all the different different varieties that they have. And they also have a couple beers they only have in Ireland. They have a lager called Hot Past 13 that we had there, and a porter, and a few others that were just Ireland only, and then some that were not even in Ireland, but they had in the connoisseur bar, which was a unique experience for sure. And it's a really cool bar.
So you also told me that they're basically going back in the archives, finding old recipes, redoing those. What did you brought one? The porter. What else did they have? Here we see their Nitro IPA and American Blonde Ale. Lager, blonde lager. That's what they're pushing on us. Here, what are they doing over there? That's different and crafty.
Well, so different and crafty is they have the Open Gate Brewery, but then the porter and they also have, I want to say it's a stout that's currently from the Brewers Project, which is part of Guinness proper. where they're taking they have the old labels. Like we actually saw some of the original labels from the archives, and they've kind of made reproductions of those that are very similar to what they used to look like.
Right.
And they're putting them in the bottles, and they're pulling the old recipes from, I think there's one from, the porter is, I believe, 1796.
Okay.
So they took the recipe from that and are redoing it with the original label, which is super cool to me to be able to go back and look, oh, this was originally made 200 years ago, and this is probably sort of what it tasted like. I mean, it's obviously not going to be identical, but
Sure.
So that, and then so there's just 2 now, but I think the intention is to do quite a few more.
Okay.
And then Open Gate is
A separate location.
it's a separate location, but still in Guinness campus. So Guinness, like, think of it like a giant, like, college campus. It's a huge, huge piece of property. And then, like, somewhere in the corner, they have this new craft brewery called Open Gate, where they're letting the brewers just brew whatever they want.
Right.
And it's modeled similar to, it looks like an American craft brewery if you were to go in. Like, you can see the brewing equipment. The brewers are walking around and talking to people who are there. There's picnic tables, kind of like a beer garden style, where you can go and sit. And then typical for Ireland is you have taps that are right in front of you when you go up to a bar that have the neon on them and like just a brand name or like whatever the beer is. But
Right. There's little lighted
the lit up things, yeah.
European style.
And so they're doing a chalkboard similar to like a American craft brewery behind it, and the taps don't have anything on them. So the idea would be that you're gonna actually look at the beers and see what options you have, and then choose something from that way, as opposed to just going to like an old staple. They're hoping that encourages people to explore a little bit. So.
Right. So it's more like a typical startup brewery where it's a warehouse and we just started to put in picnic tables and, just get started that way. So it's kind of a weird thing for them to do. Is a really big company that could afford everything decided to let's go really backwards.
Yeah, it's interesting. I guess they run the argument that they've been doing it since I think 1901 was when they first like started doing experimental brews in that space. But it wasn't open to the public.
Okay.
So this is the first time that they're letting. I guess I went in the end of November. So like around then they opened it to the public. So now anybody can go. And so like they might have made this milk stout 10 years ago, but nobody would ever get to try it.
Right.
And so now they will make a batch of beer and they'll put it on and they'll see like what the feedback is from people. And then if something does well, then they might brew it again. But there's never anything with the intention of brewing it again. Once they do it once, they might just move on to something else unless it's a huge hit. And then they might make it again, or they might think about making it again later.
Right.
But the idea is to make it truly an experimental space.
So it's kind of a really weird, different approach for a really major company to just decide to put a little quaint little tap room in the corner of their huge world-class brewery.
Yeah.
So it's just interesting to think about. Did you notice what type of styles they were producing there or were available that day?
We did a tasting of all of them. One thing that stood out was they did a milk stout that was really good. And I mean, I guess obviously like Guinness knows how to make a stout. So the milk stout was excellent. And they had a Dunkelweizen, they had a strong ale, and then they were also aging a strong ale on a whiskey barrel, which was interesting because I think like in America, most times when you have a whiskey barrel aged beer, like it's something that's been in the barrel for quite some time. But they were serving it after they'd been in the barrel for a week, which I thought was a peculiar choice, but their mentality behind it was that people could come in and maybe try it after week 1, and then like week 2 they could come in and they could try it again and be like, oh, this has changed and like it's higher in alcohol now. And so I mean, I'm not sure how that played out over time because I think I had it week 1 and you really couldn't tell that it had been in the whiskey barrel at all. Like we had the strong ale just on its own, and we had it with the whiskey barrel, and like really that wasn't long enough to.
So Guinness's diversification is going into kind of a crafty area, I guess.
Yeah.
And what is it called? Open Gate?
Open Gate Brewery is the craft portion, yeah.
Craft brand. So sooner or later we'll probably see those beers here.
I think so. I think the idea, I believe that the IPA originated from there, that they're selling now in the States. And
okay.
So the hope would be, I think, that they're going to have something come out of that they're like, oh, like the American audience would like this, and we'll bring it there.
Right.
But I think right now they're testing everything in Open Gate first, and then maybe they would put it in some pubs in Ireland and see how that goes, and then try to go bigger.
Go to America.
Yeah.
Send it to America. We don't know what to do with that weird beer. Although there's a lot of crafty. I went to London, and I guess now a year and a half, 2 years ago, and how much change is happening just in that one city. It's a huge city, but everybody's ready to move on from session pub ales to doing a lot of Belgian styles and or Americanized versions of European styles, like of course the IPA.
There's actually a brewery in Ireland called Galway Bay that does some amazing American IPAs. They have a couple. I believe that they own the bars. There are 3 like craft beer bars that I visited while I was in Dublin,
Right.
and I think that they're all owned by Galway Bay, or at least they're like heavily influenced by Galway Bay. And they have some really great IPAs, and there were a few other smaller breweries there that have done more American